What do you get when you combine a C-tier superhero with Lionsgate Films and Roadrunner Records? These questions will all be answered post haste. But first, let's hit the music. What do you What do you mean? What? Uh, One second, buddy. We've talked about this before. I'm the talent. You're the backstage producer. You're supposed to be coming up with cool shit so we look like a professional operation here. Instead, you're dropping the ball. What? Oh, you have something. All right then. Let's show it. I'm Dan. I have a podcast. I think I'm gonna make it an entertainment at 47 years old. Look at my stupid doodle art. If my boss wasn't an idiot, he would get this in digital format so I can make an intro for him. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I try to work alone. What's going on, everybody? This is Moonshine talking. I'm Dan. Welcome aboard. Hope everyone's having a good one. I'm doing all right. I'm just kind of hanging out at my place right now, doing F all. But the reason we're here today is I wanted to talk about this excellent movie. I'm not sure how many people have seen it before, but it's one of my favorites. It's super cheesy, super C grade, great cast, great producer, director, and it's I don't know. It's the type of schlock that I love, and it's kind of underrated and underground. But anyhow, I'm kind of babbling for a quick second here. But the movie we're talking about here is Faust, Love of the Damned. This came out in 2000 on Lionsgate Films. It was directed by Brian Yuzna, who some of you probably recognize the name. He was a producer on the Reanimator film. He was a producer on From Beyond. He did a lot of work with Stuart Gordon early on in his career, and then eventually he started directing films. He did Necronomicon, Dagon. I'm trying to think. He was involved with something recently. He was an executive producer on Suitable Flesh, and he's done all sorts of different stuff. But as far as stuff that I like and that I would be interested in, probably a lot of you would be interested in, that's a lot of stuff that he was involved in, and this was another one. He used his Fantastic Factory production company that was designed to. It was him and a guy by the name of Julio Fernandez, and the idea was to make films like this, like specialize in horror, sci-fi, supernatural type of stuff. You know, kind of like the what we consider like B grade movies, but make them using more international casts. So that's why a lot of times in a lot of the different movies that he was involved in, you see lots of people that most people wouldn't be familiar with, at least here in the States. Lots of Spanish actors and actresses and whatnot. But anyhow, so kind of give you, and then it had, like I was saying earlier, it has a soundtrack from Roadrunner Records. Lots of, depending on your taste, killer bands. Sorry, my mic is overmodulating all the hell. You got Machine Head, Cold Chamber. There's Sepultura, Soulfly, Fear Factory. A lot of like from that era. A lot of the more popular bands that were out there, and a lot of the film, a lot of it's scored with a bunch of Machine Head songs. When I first heard this or saw this, I heard those and I was like, all right, because that was the kind of stuff I was into, particularly back then. Not so much new metal, but I enjoy Machine Head. I know people give them shit and all that, but I like some of their stuff. But anyhow, that's not the point of this. Uh, this was a screenplay done by the creators of the Faust graphic novel, David Quinn and Tim Vigil. David Quinn is the one who did the screenplay, but the story of Faust that was their creation. David Quinn did the writing, and Tim Vigil was the artist. Fun fact that I'm sure not many people will care about, but it's interesting to note anyhow. Tim Vigil actually got commissioned to do. I don't know his name, but the drummer from System of a Down. He got commissioned to create a drum set with demons and crap all over it. So that was kind of neat. That was a neat little factoid I found out while doing a little bit of modest research on this film. So anyhow, like I say, this is based on a graphic novel that came out in 1988. It it had a very limited run, and by limited, I mean it ran from 1988 to 2012, but it only had 15 issues because it took years and years in between issues for the creators to actually put something together. Uh, the Faust Love of Damned, that was the original one, and then they had a couple other like sub series or what have you. Like I can't remember. One was one of the main antagonists. He was in the title, and then a couple other ones. But basically, the plot of the movie and of the comics, or excuse me, graphic novel for those of you who get offended by that. The point of it was John Jasper is a guy who he's killed, he's sent to hell, and he sells his soul to this shadowy figure named M, who we can all guess who that is, and he becomes an assassin in M's army. And he eventually he comes back to be with the love of his life, and yada yada blah blah. Eventually he turns, and the conflict, that's where the conflict begins between Faust and M, and it kind of goes from there. That's the premise of the graphic novels. In the movie, what they do is they have the character John Jasper, who's played by Mark Frost. They start out where he watches his girlfriend get murdered by a gang, and he wakes up, he sees her hanging upside down and brutally murdered, butchered, fried with a blowtorch, all sorts of fun stuff by this gang. And he winds up in well, not somewhat, he winds up in a despondent state. He's standing at the edge of a bridge and looking down and contemplating what he should do with the rest of his life. And that's when we come across M and his sidekick, Claire. M is played by the amazing Andrew Divoff. Andrew Divoff's a fantastic character actor. He's been in so many things, but most notably, he was in the Wishmaster series where he played the Jinn. Just amazing stuff. Very underrated horror movies. They really, at one point, they tried to give that a go where they were really trying to get it to where this was going to be like the next horror franchise. Like they had Tony Todd in the movie, Kane Hodder, Robert Englund. They had Sam Raimi was in it, and all of these horror luminaries were in it, and most of them got killed in the movie. So it was kind of like, in some respects, a passing of the torch. But Andrew Divoff's an amazing actor. He's very good in these types of roles, and he's amazing as M in this. He's just as creepy and dark and foreboding as he is in the Wishmaster movies. There's even when they get to the point in the scene where he's explaining to Jasper that he can have everything he wants, which at the time is revenge. And Mark Frost, he has this very over the top presentation of the character. Sometimes his accent in the movie changes, which is kind of weird. It almost goes from like a southern drawl to maybe he's got a European accent to it's just this very rage filled kind of pain scream at times where you can't really distinguish what it is, but it's odd. But at the same time, with the overall tenor of the movie being so over top like it is, it's kind of like it fits. But they're doing the whole thing where M pulls out his contract where he's got to sign it in blood, and he's explaining to him that all he wants is for you to sell your soul. And you can hear the gin in that, which I thought was really cool. Claire, his sidekick, uh, she's played by Monica Van Campen, who the main thing I can tell you about this is that her tits are out at like half the movie, and she's got an amazing body. She plays like the seductress in the movie. She's always scheming and plotting. She's trying to get all of M's henchmen to turn on him so she can take over the organization. Because while at its core, M he's the head, the kingpin of a criminal organization that's like at equal parts crime family and satanic death cult, and they're supposed to be this shadowy organization called the Hand, and they've existed for centuries, and they're setting out to bring about the end of the world and bring the return of homunculus, and that's kind of the idea behind like their whole mo, their mission statement, if you will. uh, but yeah, so there's that, and then so he eventually he sells his soul, he signs the contract, he becomes Faust, and he goes on a rampage. He gets his revenge, yada yada. But then he goes a little bit further, and that's where, and I'm kind of bouncing back from scene to scene. But then we get introduced to the character Lieutenant Margolis, which is played by Jeffrey Combs, and again, kind of tying in with the whole with Brian Yuzna and the Stuart Gordon connection. Jeffrey Combs, I don't have to explain him. He's a fantastic B movie and horror actor. Been in the Reanimator movies. He's in this one. He's in he's in so many different things, but those are probably in From Beyond, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been in so many different movies, different stuff. Even like kind of going back a little bit. Barbara Crampton, she was in Suitable Flesh, and of course, she was in From Beyond. So lots of connections there. But he plays this like this hard nosed detective. He's the first one who comes upon Jasper when he's just gone on a rampage, and he's killed like 12 people at the Chinese consulate, and Margolis catches him and captures him. He's getting ready to kill him, but he doesn't, and Faust, Jasper, doesn't kill him, even though that was kind of part of the plan. So from there on, Jasper winds up in a mental facility. He winds up in an asylum, and that's where we get introduced to Dr. Jade DeCamp, which is played by Isabel Brooke, who I don't know a whole lot about, but she does a good role. She has a good role. She has at this point he's in a catatonic state, and he she brings him back using like some sort of cognitive therapy using music, and where classical music and stuff doesn't work for him, he gets triggered by heavy metal. So and then he kind of wakes up, and he kind of goes through the whole thing, and this is kind of where it turns to where at this point Faust was just basically a killing machine doing the work of M. But then because he kind of found something to believe in or love or what have you, he starts to kind of turn a little bit, which is something that gets explained in the contract signing with them, which I won't give away too much because I don't want to give the whole movie away because I want people to go watch it. It's an amazing film. So you just kind of you go from there, and it's just that's kind of like how the story kind of plays out, and then we get to a point where the Hand tries to kill him in the insane asylum, but he escapes, and we're kind of off to the races from there. At some point, when M realizes that he has a connection to Dr. DeCamp, they try to abduct her and try to use her as leverage against him. And it kind of goes from there, and you get kind of like your standard like superhero fare and stuff like that. Which actually reminds me, of kind of a quick aside, real quick. Another movie that Brian Yuzna did is The Guyver, which is another bonkers, wild, off the rails movie that if you haven't seen, I would go check that out. Mark Hamill's in it, and it's they got J.J. Walker's in it at one point, but it's lots of people turning into monsters and crap like that. And friggin' Doctor, not the other doctor, I can't remember his name off the the top of my head from Reanimator, but not Dr. West, but not Jeffrey Combs' character, but the other doctor in it. He's also in it. I'm that's his name. I had to look that up real quick. But just I kind of lost my train of thought for a quick second here. But it kind of goes from there where it becomes like your typical like superhero kind of film where damsel in distress, the hero kind of they have like they start developing the whole romantic relationship and the bond between them and trying to bring Jasper back, bring him back his humanity is basically like what she's trying to do. And at the same time, they start developing the character with her where there's some sort of damage there. And I guess what they refer to today as trauma bonding starts happening between the two of them. So you get into the third act where you start understanding the plan. They start fleshing out the plan of the Hand and M and where Faust and this one and that one and eventually Dr. Jade she plays into it, and you wind up in this bonkers third act, which is a word that I'm going to use liberally because this is the most. It goes from where first it was like an over the top, like feast of blood and violence and dismemberments and stuff like that, and tits out and all sorts of stuff like that. Then you get into this where they're setting up for what for they call the Red Giving, and it's just this insane scene where it's the Hand and their entire cult and the whole ritual that they get into, that it's wild and you have to see it. And it's equal parts like over the top and going off the rails at the same time is kind of the way the whole movie ends. It's loaded with, I would say, for the time, probably decent effects, but they're terrible. They're just terrible effects. And I don't know. Sometimes it's almost like full moon feature territory, but overall, because I don't want to bore you too much with my babble, but this is a fantastic film. Makes sense because it's Fantastic Factory, but just a very highly underrated. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it as far as bad movies go, superhero movies, horror movies. You don't hear a lot of stuff about that. Apparently, at one point back in 2021, Sony had acquired the rights to make an animated series for Faust, but I don't know what happened to that. I mean, it's been 4 years. They either just bought the rights to it and shelved it, and maybe someone will come along and they'll do something with it, or I don't know. I don't know what they plan on doing with it. But this is one of these films where I kind of feel like it personally speaking, if I knew how to write a screenplay, I would probably rewrite it and try to shop it around and do a new one with this because this is one of these kind of like crazy movies that I think, even though I think the original stands on its own, it would be kind of a cool movie. This would be something that would be cool to remake because I don't know. I just think it's a good crazy movie. But overall, definitely go check it out. The acting in it is over the top. The character and the practical effects are top notch. You got Screaming Mad George and I took notes, but I got to flip my page here. Fast Cow FX and Con Efectos Especial 2000 were the people that did a lot of the effects and the practical work and stuff like that. Really killer stuff. Lots of with the puppets, the miniatures, the costume designs, all the sort of stuff. The splatter gore effects that you get in this movie. You get dismemberments and beheadings and probably about I stopped counting around 18 or 20 naked breasts and gigantic albino pythons and Andrew Divoff chewing up the scenery the entire time. I mean, this is a fantastic movie. So once again, Faust, Love of the Damned. Go pick it up if you can get a copy of it. If you don't already have it, if you can find it anywhere to stream, go watch it. It's a very very killer movie. Actually, I got this from a seller on eBay called Rex Reselling. So I want to give a quick little shout out to him. And yeah, man, this was a killer one. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoy my stupid malarkey. And I promise one day I will have an actual proper intro to this dumb channel and actually make it look like I'm actually trying a little bit. But anyhow, so that's what I got for you at the moment. If you're new here, you know, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all that horseshit. And otherwise, everyone else, this is Dan. Hopefully, you haven't been too bored. This has been Moonshine talking. As always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. Everyone have a good one, and I will catch you on the next video. Later.